You know that person, right? The one who just somehow sees the best in everyone. And they can rally a group, paint this amazing picture of what could be.
Yeah, the natural leader type, the one you just feel drawn to follow.
Exactly. What is it about them? How do they do that?
Well, that impulse, they're trying to understand people like that, and maybe ourselves too. That's why things like the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, are so popular.
They give you a framework, maybe? A way to talk about it?
Precisely. A lens, yeah. A structured way to explore how we see the world, how we make choices, all those fascinating differences.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're grabbing our gear and focusing on one specific type. We've got this whole stack of research, articles, notes, all looking at the ENFJ.
Ah, the protagonist,
Yeah.
or sometimes the teacher. That's what they're often called.
Right. So if you know one, or maybe you are one, those labels probably ring a bell.
So our mission today, it's not just about the label. We want to unpack what really makes them tick.
What are the core traits? What's going on under the hood, like with their cognitive functions?
Exactly. And where do they thrive? Careers, relationships,
Yeah.
what are their strengths? But also, let's be honest, what are the challenges they face?
And maybe how they can grow.
That's the goal, to give you, the listener, a really rich, layered understanding.
All right, let's start with the basics then. ENFJ, what do those letters tell us straight away?
Okay, yeah, the foundation, 4 key preferences.
Yeah.
E is for extroversion.
Meaning they get their energy from being around people.
Exactly. Energized by social interaction, lively settings, they thrive there. And it's pretty common, actually. The data we saw suggests about 49.3% of the U.S. population leans extroverted.
Okay, so almost half. Got it. Energized by the external world. What about the N?
And is intuition. So unlike sensing types who focus on, the concrete details, the here and now,
Uh-huh.
ENFJs are drawn to possibilities, the big picture, underlying meanings, future potential. They're imaginative, forward-thinking, always asking what if.
And that's less common.
Yeah, quite a bit less. Only about 26.7% of the U.S. population has that intuition preference.
Okay, so people-focused, future-oriented. What's the F?
F is for feeling. This is a big one. It means their decisions are really guided by values, by the impact on others' feelings. They're always striving for harmony.
Empathy is key then.
Deeply empathetic, yeah.
Mm.
Building positive relationships is a natural priority. And feeling is actually the majority preference in the U.S., around 59.8%.
Interesting. Okay, ENF, finally, J.
J is for judging. Now, this doesn't mean judgmental in the negative sense. It means they prefer life to be structured, planned, organized.
They like things settled, closure.
Right. They like control, structure, decisiveness. They prefer things settled rather than left open-ended. And that's also fairly common. About 54.1% in the U.S. prefer judging.
So, let me see if I've got this. Energized by people, E, focused on future possibilities, N, deciding based on values and harmony, F, and liking structure and planning, J.
You got it?
Put that all together, and you start to really see that protagonist or teacher picture forming, don't you?
Absolutely. Those preferences blend together to create their core traits. The sources consistently describe them as passionate, empathetic, positive, responsible.
Communicative.
Exceptionally communicative, yeah. Visionary, natural leaders, really helpful, often quite idealistic, organized, supportive, inspiring, persuasive, diplomatic, and just deeply caring. It all flows from those 4 letters.
Okay, but the letters are just the start, right? You mentioned the cognitive functions. That's like the inner wiring.
Ah, yes. This work is really fascinating. It's not just the letters, it's the order of these functions, how they stack up. For the ENFJ, their number one, their dominant function is extroverted feeling.
Faye is top dog.
Top dog, absolutely. Developed super early, usually before age 7. Faye is all about connecting with others' emotional needs and maintaining that external harmony. The sources call it connecting.
So they just sense what people are feeling.
They're naturally gifted at it. Sensing emotions, needs, even motivations. They're driven to build positive relationships. And often they'll express first, get their feelings out, and then process internally afterwards.
Which leads them towards influencing things.
Right. Leading, influencing, social norms, unity. It's all part of that Faye drive. Though sometimes they might suppress their own needs to keep the peace.
So their default mode is managing the emotional climate.
Pretty much, yeah. The collective feeling, ensuring harmony. Now, backing that up, their second function, the auxiliary, is Introverted Intuition, NI.
Ni, okay.
This develops later, usually before age 20. NI gives them that insight, that foresight. It's about perceiving deeper meanings, future possibilities, often connecting things unconsciously to form a vision.
And that's the visionary piece we talked about.
That's it exactly. Ni is why they often have such a clear, compelling vision for the future. They feel this drive sometimes to change the world, make things better. It helps with long-term planning and, crucially, motivating others towards those goals.
But you said it's filtered through the Fae.
Yes, that's a key point for ENFJs. Using Ni for just. Objective truth isn't usually the main goal. It's more about using that insight for social goals, guiding, inspiring people towards that shared vision. People first, then the vision.
So Fae plus Ni, that's the powerhouse combination.
That's the engine, absolutely. It's why they're such natural leaders and motivators. They get people emotionally,
Yeah.
and they can paint this powerful, aspirational future, Ni,
And they communicate it well.
in a way that really resonates, yeah. Inspiring people, helping them see their own potential within that bigger picture. It's not just caring about people, it's having a vision for them.
What about the other functions, the ones that come later?
Okay, so third in the stack is the tertiary function. Extroverted sensing, or say. This usually starts developing more around middle age, sometimes later.
Sensing the world around them.
Right. Engaging with and appreciating the physical world, sensory experiences. For ENFJs, this often means developing a refined taste, aesthetics, quality, beauty in art, music, food, their environment, even personal appearance.
Adds a bit of vibrancy. Enjoying the moment.
It does. Though the sources do mention that sometimes this focus on refined taste can come across to others as maybe a little snobby.
Huh. Okay. Good to know. And the last one. The weakest.
That's their inferior function. Introverted thinking care. This is their blind spot, the one they're least comfortable with, also developing much later.
Te, internal logic.
Internal logic, objective analysis, critical self-assessment. Because it's inferior, ENFJs can feel insecure relying just on their own logic.
Yeah.
They often default back to Fae group values, what feels right for others, keeping harmony.
So pure detached analysis is tough.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah.
And the sources note, under major stress, this T can pop out negatively. They might become overly critical of themselves or others or fixate on tiny flaws. Developing this side is important for growth, but their natural inclination is outward, towards emotional awareness.
Wow. Okay, so that's stack Fae driving, Ni visioning, Seep appreciating the world later, and Telly being the challenge that really maps onto the behaviors.
It absolutely shapes how they interact with everything. Prioritizing harmony, fee-ware, seeing potential, Ni, appreciating aesthetics, C, maybe struggling with detached self-critique, T.
Which loops us right back to protagonist and teacher. How do those labels connect directly?
It's that Fee plus Ni powerhouse again. They're just naturally equipped to inspire and guide. Fee gives them that deep connection, that empathy to see needs and potential. And Ni provides the clear, often uplifting vision they articulate so well. They genuinely want to help others grow and achieve goals. I mean, that's the essence of a great teacher, right?
Yeah, totally. And the protagonist part.
Well, think about a story's protagonist. They step up, lead, face challenges, inspire hope. ENFJs do that, using their vision, Ni, in communication, to unite people for a common goal, often driving positive change. They kind of naturally take that central motivating role.
It makes perfect sense. They sound incredibly impactful. So are there a lot of them? Are they common?
You know, it's funny, despite how influential they often seem, they're actually pretty rare.
Right.
Yeah, the research suggests only about 2% to 5% of the global population. In the U.S., it's around 2.5%. So they're up there, or down there, I guess, with the other rare types like INFJ, ENTJ, INTJ.
Wow, 2.5%. That's surprisingly low. You feel like you encounter them more often.
Maybe because they are so socially present when you do meet them.
Is there a gender difference?
Yes, and it's pretty significant according to the data. It leans heavily female. Around 68% to 69% of ENFJs identify as women, compared to only 31% to 32% men.
Whoa. So like 1 in 18 women versus 1 in 40 men, roughly.
Something like that, yeah. Much more common among women.
So rare overall, especially for men. But as you said, they often seem popular, charming.
Exactly. It's this weird contrast. Low numbers, high social visibility. They generally have excellent social skills, warm, friendly, empathetic. They connect easily, even with quieter folks.
That infectious energy people talk about.
That's often part of it. And that ability to sense needs and offer support makes them trusted friends, often central figures in their circles.
But you mentioned the sources note they can get drained if it's not reciprocated.
That's a huge point. Their Fae is always giving, connecting, supporting. If they don't feel like that huge effort is met with some appreciation or mutual support, it can be incredibly exhausting. Burnout is real. Their influence really stems from that Fae connection combined with the Ni vision that draws people in.
Thinking about influential people, it's not surprising some famous names get flagged as potential ENFJs. Who do the sources usually mention?
Yeah, a few prominent figures come up often, like in politics, Barack Obama is frequently cited. His communication style, that vision for social progress, rallying people.
Makes total sense with Faye plus Nye, that connection and vision.
Absolutely. Then in media, Oprah Winfrey. Her insight, kindness, drive, that guiding, inspiring role she plays. Very teacher.
What about historical figures?
Martin Luther King Jr. is a powerful example. Conviction, eloquence, mobilizing people for justice. Classic ENFJ leadership profile. The sources also mention Meghan Markle's social confidence, charm, sensitivity to others.
Any from entertainment?
Sure. Matthew McConaughey often comes up that easy charm, leadership vibe, inspiring communication. Kate Winslet, too. Warmth, friendliness, idealism, helping others. And interestingly, the rapper Drake is sometimes mentioned.
Drake? How so?
For his emotionally expressive lyrics, sensitivity, being forward-thinking in his career, his influence, showing that depth and impact.
And it's not just Western figures, but right, the sources mention Korean celebs too.
Right, like Song Joong-ki and Yuki and Minnie from GIDLE. It shows these patterns aren't just culture-specific. With all these examples, you can often see a link between their public image or achievements and those core ENFJ traits, casting a vision, connecting, rallying support.
Okay, so given that drive to connect, help, inspire, where do they usually find fulfilling work? What kind of careers really let them shine?
They really need work that feels meaningful, where they can see they're making a positive difference. For individuals, for a community, that impact is key.
So obviously teaching, right.
Oh yeah, education and training is a natural fit. Teachers, corporate trainers, coaches, anywhere they're guiding development. Counseling and social services too. Therapists, social workers, advisors, that empathy and listening is crucial there. Also, healthcare, doctors, nurses, health educators, combining caring with responsibility. HR and organizational development is another big one, using interpersonal skills to build positive workplaces, motivate teams.
What about more public-facing roles? Communication?
Definitely. PR, communications, marketing, PR specialists, brand managers, maybe journalists focused on human interest, persuasion, connection, it fits. And of course, leadership and management.
Executives, politicians?
Executives, project managers, politicians, nonprofit leaders, casting vision, making people-focused decisions, motivating teams. Even some creative arts roles like event planning or directing, where they combine creativity with guiding a team.
So basically anywhere they can lead, help people grow, or advocate. What kind of environment works best?
Ideally, it's collaborative, people-centered. They like variety, creative problem solving. It should be forward-thinking, aligning with their NI and let them express their values.
Feeling supported matters too.
Feeling supported and getting recognition, yes. And some autonomy helps. What they don't like is repetitive, isolated work that feels meaningless. That fake caring and knee vision demand work that makes a visible positive impact.
Okay, let's shift to relationships. How does all this play out in love? What are ENFJs like as partners?
They tend to be incredibly passionate, very committed, deeply empathetic partners. Building that deep emotional connection, harmony, mutual support. That's paramount.
They sound like they really invest themselves.
Oh, absolutely. They pour energy into relationships. They're looking for someone who gets their idealism, their caring nature, someone they can grow with.
A growth partnership, the sources called it.
Exactly. They want shared values, mutual inspiration. They're loyal, dedicated, super helpful. Maybe sometimes too helpful, a bit over-involved.
Okay.
And they really, really need appreciation. Feeling seen and valued for their care makes them feel loved. That Fey drive to nurture and Nye vision for the relationship's potential are always working.
So what kind of person makes a good match?
Someone empathetic, who understands that idealism. Someone genuine, communicative, willing to share deeply. They need connection, but their partner probably needs some independence too. And crucially, someone willing to grow together.
Does the research point to specific MBTI types that click well?
Yeah, theory and studies often highlight a few. INFPs are a classic pairing. Shared N and F means shared depth, empathy, idealism. INFP warmth complements ENFJ care and structure. Both want that deep connection.
Any potential friction points there?
Well, both can avoid conflict. The ENFJ's E might overwhelm the INFP's I sometimes, and the JP difference needs navigating. ISFPs are another interesting one, sometimes ranked highly. Shared F means value harmony. ISFP's present focus and artistic side add vibrancy. ENFJ warmth helps ISFP feel safe. Action complements planning.
Chuck?
The IE and SN differences need good communication. ENFJ needs to give space, respect the ISFP's focus on the now versus their own future gaze. INFJs are often seen as highly compatible. Shared N, F, and J means super similar values, easy understanding. Both want to make an impact. ENFJ helps INFJ express. INFJ helps ENFJ listen inward.
Downside.
Both can be very idealistic, sensitive. And the ENFJ's extroversion might drain the INFJ sometimes. And ENTPs can be a dynamic match, too. Shared N and E means exciting talks, exploring ideas. ENTP logic balances ENFJ feeling. ENFJ organization helps ENFP flexibility.
Potential clashes.
ENTP bluntness versus ENFJ harmony needs care. And the ENFJ's emotional needs require sensitivity from the ENTP.
So quite a few potential good fits based on sharing or balancing. What about types where it's trickier?
Well, compatibility isn't destiny, right? Communication matters most.
Right.
But the sources mention ISTJ compatibility as debated.
Debated. How so?
Some views, like one Japanese source mentioned, see them as potentially a best partner because the differences complement. Shared J gives structure. Then EI and S, FT differences, are seen as opposites attract. ENFJ warmth vision meets ISTJ practicality stability.
Okay, so one perspective sees balance there.
Exactly. But other analyses suggest lower natural compatibility. The differences in emotional expression that Phi versus the ISTJ's quieter style and core focus people future versus facts past can lead to misunderstandings, feeling unheard, more potential for conflict.
Right, shows how different frameworks see it.
Yeah.
So generally they want that supportive, growth-focused bond. But you hinted earlier, their strengths can sometimes cause issues in relationships. That caring instinct.
Yes, this is really key for ENFJs and their partners. That strong Phi plus J drive to care, harmonize, and help people grow. If it's not balanced with self-awareness, it can sometimes slip into feeling like subtle control or overprotection.
Where does that come from?
From that deep desire to guide their partner, help them reach potential, maybe fit into the ENFJ's idealized vision for the relationship or the partner's life. If the partner isn't quite meeting those expectations, the ENFJ might unconsciously try to nudge them or fix things.
Which could feel like pressure.
Exactly. You can put pressure on the partner and, ironically, end up disrupting the very harmony the ENFJ wants. It's a tricky contradiction tied to their core nature they need to watch out for.
Yeah, I can see how that intense focus, if unchecked, could be tough on the other person. Which leads us to broader emotional challenges. What are some common struggles ENFJs face, given that outward focus?
You nailed it. Their biggest strength, empathy, desire to help, can become their biggest stressors. Focusing so much on others, feeling responsible, it can be a heavy weight.
Like absorbing everyone else's stuff.
It can feel like that sometimes. A huge one is overcommitment and burnout. That femme makes saying no incredibly hard. They take on too much, spread themselves thin, crash.
And neglect themselves in the process.
Absolutely. Neglecting own needs is classic. Others' needs always seem to come first rest. Personal desires get pushed aside. They're also often highly sensitive to criticism.
Because their worth is tied to helping.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
So negative feedback feels personal, not just about the action. They really need that validation, that appreciation.
And the need for harmony must be draining when things aren't harmonious.
Oh, definitely. Conflict avoidance is common. They might bite their tongue, avoid tough talks just to keep the peace, even when something needs addressing. Their over-idealism can also bite them.
Setting themselves up for disappointment.
Exactly. When reality doesn't match their high standards for the world, others, themselves, it hurts. This can feed into excessive people-pleasing, losing touch with themselves, trying to get that approval. Another big one, difficulty setting boundaries. Their empathy makes it so easy to absorb others' feelings, get over-involved, feel responsible for fixing things that aren't theirs. Stress from disharmony, especially close relationships, family, it can floor them. They can struggle with guilt and self-blame, taking responsibility when things go wrong, even if it's not their fault.
That emotional sponge idea sounds exhausting.
It really can be. Prone to emotional overwhelm, soaking up negativity, stress, problems from others, and carrying it themselves. And finally, those high standards can lead to fear of failure and perfectionism, lots of internal pressure, self-criticism.
So their greatest gifts really can become their biggest burdens under stress.
It's exactly that. Empathy, FE, turns into being an emotional sponge. Leading helping, Phi plus Ni, can become over-control if unbalanced. Idealism becomes unrealistic expectations, and under severe stress, that inferior tie grip can happen.
Where they get Self-critical.
Yeah, uncharacteristically critical of self or others, fixating on tiny flaws, withdrawing into harsh self-analysis, totally unlike their usual warm self.
It sounds like the core problem often boils down to that imbalance, too much outward focus, not enough attention inward.
That's often the crux of it. Dominant Fae pulling them outward, underdeveloped inferior T, leaving their internal world less examined. They feel this huge responsibility burden for others, Phi plus name mission. And without balance, it's consuming.
Okay, so if that's the challenge, how do they find that balance? How does an ENFJ grow towards a healthier, more sustainable way of being?
The key really seems to be turning that incredible capacity for care inward, applying it to themselves. It's about integrating those less used functions, seeking balance consciously.
What does that look like practically? What steps can they take?
The sources suggest some really actionable things. First, maybe the hardest. Set healthy boundaries. It's vital. Learning to say no, protecting their energy even when they want to help. Practice starting small. And just as crucial, prioritize self-care. Seriously, schedule it. Meditation, exercise, hobbies, nature, whatever refills their tank. It can't be an afterthought.
Plan their own recharge time.
Exactly. They also need to consciously develop self-awareness, using Ni for inner insight, not just outer vision, and deliberately engaging T for objective self-assessment, asking, what do I need? What do I think, separate from the group? Maybe even using pros-cons lists to engage logic.
Lean into that tie they might normally avoid. What about handling criticism?
Manage sensitivity to criticism. Try to see its feedback, not a personal attack. Learn to distinguish helpful critique from unfair jabs. Practice calm responses, and relatedly address conflict constructively. Have the tough talks instead of smoothing everything over.
And dial back the idealism a bit.
Yes, temper idealism with realism. Accept imperfection in self, in others. Adjust expectations. It's also huge for them to seek and accept support. They don't have to carry it all. Asking for help is strength. And consciously value their own needs and feelings. Their well-being matters too. Other helpful things include mindfulness and stress reduction techniques, learning to delegate tasks, trust others, balancing that future focus with enjoying the present moment, developing C, and learning to detach when needed care, but analyze objectively, using T. Don't internalize everything.
So it sounds like the whole growth path is about bringing those inner functions, Ni for self-insight, T for self-analysis, C for grounding into better balance with that powerful outward Fae.
That's really the heart of it. Not shutting down the Fae, but integrating the others so their caring and vision are sustainable, healthy, less self-sacrificial. Pulling back some of that intense external focus, grounding it internally.
And that point about self-care not being selfish?
It's probably the most critical point for ENFJs. Because they lean so naturally towards self-sacrifice, they have to be deliberate about self-care. It's not indulgent. It's essential fuel. It's what lets them keep being those amazing, inspiring people without burning out. It's an investment in their impact.
So we reached the end of our deep dive on the ENFJ, the protagonist, the teacher. We've definitely seen that incredible potential to inspire, connect, drive change. They really live up to those names.
Yeah, and we've also looked honestly at the challenges that come with those gifts, that core tension, balancing the powerful outward drive with the absolute necessity of self-care and self-understanding.
The sources mention this idea of the awakened protagonist. Maybe that's a good thought to leave everyone with. What does it really look like for an ENFJ or anyone who resonates with this to truly master that balance between the passion they pour outwards and genuine inner peace? And maybe, how does nurturing yourself actually amplify your ability to impact the world in a sustainable, powerful way?
It's definitely a journey, not a destination. But yeah, finding that balance seems key to letting their light shine, not just brightly, but steadily.
A powerful thought.